Hear that? It's an air raid siren wailing. Now picture this. A flickering classroom film shows a cartoon turtle wisely ducking into its shell. For 45 years, every child in America, and millions more around the globe, knew that drill, drop, cover, pray. One flash, just one, could erase spelling tests, birthday parties, the whole neighborhood. Gone. This isn't just some dry history lesson about missiles on maps. It's about mothers staring at bedroom ceilings, wide-eyed with worry. It's about fathers pouring concrete in backyards, building something more than a patio. And it's about kids who learn to read by the glow of fallout safety posters, their innocent eyes scanning for survival tips. Welcome to life when the sky, any moment, could literally kill you. From 1947 to 1991, our entire planet balanced on a terrifying two-word threat: nuclear exchange. Washington and Moscow, these two colossal powers, never actually fired that final catastrophic shot. Yet, the fear they generated bled into every corner of daily life, into milkshake counters, into hushed church basements, even into the lullabies mothers sang to their children. We're going to peel back 3 crucial layers of that era. How ordinary homes became makeshift bunkers, how human minds became minefields of anxiety, and how unbelievably close we came to pressing that button, that one button that could end everything. Stick around. At the end, I'll ask you what scared you most. And yes, I actually read every single comment. The victory parades had barely ended, the confetti still settling, before new, ominous maps appeared in classrooms. Half the world, splashed in a stark, unsettling crimson. Stalin's tanks rolled through Eastern Europe, cementing control. Truman's bombs, a stark reminder of their power, had already fallen on Bikini Atoll, not in anger, but in testing. Each side, of course, claimed pure defense, a shield against the other, but both, relentlessly, stockpiled defense. By 1949, the USSR had the bomb, a terrifying equalizer. Just 3 years later, in 1952, the U.S. unveiled something far more monstrous: the H-bomb, a hydrogen device orders of magnitude more destructive. Deterrence. It sounded so elegant, so logical, when written in newspaper editorials or debated in halls of power. But translated to kitchen tables, whispered across linoleum, it became one simple, chilling sentence. If the sirens ever howl, we have minutes. Maybe. Civil defense booklets, flimsy paper shields against unthinkable destruction, promised survival if you just built a plywood door and dug a trench in your yard. Nobody truly believed it, not deep down, but everybody bought it, or at least clung to the hope it offered. The federal government distributed plans for family fallout shelters with the same casual ease that grocery stores printed pie recipes. Cheap, cheerful denial coded in official ink. School boards scheduled duck-and-cover drills between dodgeball and fractions. Teachers, with a practiced, weary sigh, flipped wall charts so the terrifying mushroom clouds faced the corkboard, not the kids, as if paper could somehow block imagination, somehow erase the image from their minds. Newspapers, ever eager for a sale, screamed scare headlines. Red subs off coast. Then, with a jarring pivot, flipped to coupons for laundry soap. Fear sold papers, sure, but it also sold detergent. Existential dread became the background noise, the way tinnitus hums persistently behind every conversation. You couldn't see radiation, couldn't taste it, so the mind pictured it everywhere. In raindrops, in the milk you drank, in the baby's brand new teeth. Welcome to normal. Now, step right into 1958 suburbia. The scent of freshly cut grass, the hum of lawnmowers. Dad unrolls a blueprint, not for a new patio, but for a 12x8 concrete cube, destined to be buried under the begonias. Mom, with a furrowed brow, calculates canned food quotas. 1 tin of tuna per person per day, for 2 weeks. It was a math problem that tasted like tin. A grim equation for survival. The kids? They'd label mason jars not with ingredients, but with grim placeholders. Kool-Aid, and fear. The cost for this peace of mind, this concrete promise? Half a brand new Chevy. The payoff? Maybe living. Just maybe. Hardware stores cashed in, big time. They marketed prefab shelters the way today's influencers pitch phone cases: stylish, essential, even vaguely sexy in a terrifying sort of way. Neighbors, trying to keep up with the Joneses, would subtly compare the thickness of their lead lining at barbecues, because keeping up with the Joneses now meant surviving them after the blast. Meanwhile, schools ran duck and cover drills with the precision of a national choir rehearsal. Millions of children, small and vulnerable, folded under desks, practiced placing coats over their heads, a desperate choreography of hope over physics. Teenagers, with their characteristic blend of bravado and terror, joked about kissing their backside goodbye. But a quick glance, a flicker of eye contact during those drills, revealed the joke was wearing thin, the fear too real. At home, transistor radios spilled rock and roll into cul-de-sacs, a vibrant soundtrack to a nervous age. Yet every top 10 hit carried a subtext, a whispered warning: dance now, because tomorrow we might just vanish. Mothers clipped coupons for canned peaches, fathers installed Geiger counters next to the garage door opener, and nobody, absolutely nobody, admitted the secret fear: that survival might, just might, be worse than the flash itself. Because if the bomb didn't kill you, the neighbors who owned better shelters might, in their desperation. Fear, you see, corrodes differently than bombs. It works from the inside out. Psychiatrists in 1962, grappling with a new kind of collective dread, coined the term nuclear anxiety. They noted stomach aches in kids who, when asked to draw a sun, instead drew a black orb. Teachers reported alarming peaks in bedwetting incidents after every headline crisis. Dentists saw more ground molars than ever before, a testament to silent, clenching stress. Adults fared little better. Opinion polls, stark and unsettling, showed a third of Americans expected war within months. Half kept tranquilizers in their purses, just in case. Hollywood, always quick to capitalize on public anxieties, cashed in. They released creature features: giant ants, body snatchers, monstrous beings spawned by radiation and distrust. The underlying message was clear and chilling. Enemies look like neighbors. Neighbors, in turn, look suspiciously like enemies. McCarthyism, a dark chapter in American history, fed voraciously on that paranoia, transforming living rooms into loyalty courts. A single accusation, often baseless, could end a career, ruin a life. Silence in that climate equaled guilt, so everybody spoke, eager to prove their loyalty, but nobody truly listened. Soviet citizens across the vast Iron Curtain faced a mirror dread. State newspapers blared warnings of capitalist sneak attacks, painting a grim picture of Western aggression. Children in kindergartens practiced gas mask drills, their tiny lungs learning to breathe through filters. Behind the drab walls of communal apartments, grandmothers with trembling hands hid religious icons, clinging to old faiths. Grandfathers, with a rebellious glint in their eyes, hid radios that could catch the forbidden voice of America. Both crimes, both potentially punishable by forced labor camps. Nightmares, it seems, traveled both ways across the ocean, carried by shortwave signals and short tempers. The arms race wasn't just about uranium and rockets. It was about cortisol and sleepless nights, a brutal competition in who could stay terrified longest. The psychological toll was immense, a silent internal war waged in every mind. Turn on the TV. Maybe it's My Little Margie flickering on the screen, a comforting domestic scene. Then, a sudden news break. Sputnik, a tiny metallic sphere, blinks across the night sky, ushering in the space race and a new wave of fear. Change the channel. A Warner Brothers cartoon, Daffy Duck drops an anvil, and the resulting cloud bears an uncanny, unsettling resemblance to a mushroom. Even sitcoms, bastions of light-hearted humor, couldn't entirely escape. Pop music, too, flirted with doom, sometimes quite explicitly. Remember Enola Gay? It topped charts in 1980, a synth-pop dance track about the very bomber that opened the atomic age, a jarring juxtaposition of catchy melody and catastrophic history. Novels, particularly those aimed at teenagers, plunged readers into post-nuke wastelands, forcing them to confront the unthinkable. Teachers assigned Alas, Babylon, a tale of survival after nuclear war, right alongside The Great Gatsby, both, in their own way, stories of American dreams. One blossoming, the other gone boom. Advertisers, ever opportunistic, joined the choir of anxieties. A 1961 cereal ad, unbelievably, showed a smiling mom serving corn puffs in a fallout shelter. The tagline, "Breakfast after the blast," because, apparently, fiber matters, even at ground zero. Board games like Blasto let families mimic missile trajectories over a bowl of popcorn, turning Annihilation into a parlor game. Humor, that vital pressure valve, became dark and necessary. Joke books asked, "What's the weather forecast?" Cloudy, with a chance of mushroom. But laugh too loud, and a heavy silence would follow, a pang of guilt at finding anything funny in the idea of vaporized cities. Yet every gag, every macabre punchline, carried a sliver of truth. Culture had absorbed the unabsorbable, packaging Armageddon for polite conversation, making the unthinkable, somehow, thinkable. While families across America and the Soviet Union hoarded beans and dug trenches, presidents and premiers played a terrifying game of chess, using entire continents as their board pieces. Berlin, 1961. Tanks faced tanks across barbed wire, engines idling, tempers revving. Kennedy and Khrushchev, two men with the weight of the world on their shoulders, measured every word in ultimatums, each syllable a possible last. Spy planes snapped photos from the heavens. Diplomats traded notes like schoolboys passing threats, except these threats carried unimaginable consequences. Then came October 1962. A date seared into history. U-2 reconnaissance photographs, stark and undeniable, revealed Soviet missile tubes being assembled in Cuban sugar fields, just 90 miles from Miami, a mere 12 minutes flight time from Main Street, USA. For 13 agonizing days, the entire globe balanced precariously on that tiny island, teetering on the edge of the abyss. Naval convoys steamed south, U.S. warships forming a quarantine line, a softer word for a blockade, to prevent more Soviet ships from reaching Cuba. Strategic Air Command, SAC bombers scattered to runway ends, engines hot, nuclear weapons loaded, ready to launch at a moment's notice. Soviet submarines, torpedo tubes greased with atomic warheads, slipped silently through the Caribbean depths, their commanders holding the power of global destruction in their hands. In Washington, generals, driven by fear and strategic doctrine, pushed for immediate preemptive strikes. Advisors, with grim faces, counted potential casualties in the millions. President Kennedy, against immense pressure, chose a naval quarantine, a word carefully selected to sound less like an act of war, more like a defensive measure. On day 11, Soviet missile site crews, under intense pressure from Moscow, accelerated assembly, seemingly defying the American demands. On day 12, deep beneath the waves, a Soviet submarine, the B-59, almost launched a nuclear torpedo. Its desperate crew, cut off from Moscow, faced a choice between surrender or unleashing hell. It was stopped only by a sweating, courageous officer named Vasily Arkhipov, who, against the wishes of his superiors, refused to authorize the launch. Day 13. Khrushchev, facing down the brink, finally blinked. He agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba, in exchange for a U.S. promise not to invade the island, and a secret agreement to quietly remove American missiles from Turkey. The world exhaled, a collective shaky breath, largely unaware of just how close it had danced to midnight, 2 minutes, literally, on the bulletin of the atomic scientist's doomsday clock. The Cuban Missile Crisis wasn't just a political chess match, it was the Cold War's most dangerous moment, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. Ask anyone who lived through October 62. They'll tell you time itself seemed to thicken, to slow to an agonizing crawl. Schools canceled football games, churches overflowed with anxious parishioners seeking solace. Liquor sales spiked by a staggering 50% as people sought to numb the gnawing fear. Miami residents closest to the potential ground zero frantically taped their windows, then gave up. Too many windows, too little tape, too much futility. Radio stations, usually playing cheerful tunes, switched to hymns between somber news bulletins. Teenagers, caught in the terrifying uncertainty, kissed in parked cars. Some for practice, some, perhaps, for goodbye. Soviet citizens, though kept largely in the dark by state media, braced themselves too. Moscow friends swapped rumors of American paratroopers, whispers of impending invasion. Kiev bakers doubled their bread shifts, instinctively preparing for long sieges, for a world turned upside down. In Leningrad, musicians performed Shostakovich's powerful Leningrad Symphony live, an auditory shield against incoming bombs, a defiant roar in the face of fear. Both superpowers, in a grim display of unity, aired civil defense films back-to-back, as if repetition alone could somehow manufacture safety, could conjure up a sense of control. Yet, beneath the drills and the bravado, ran a raw, undeniable truth. Nobody, not the leaders, not the generals, not the ordinary citizens, knew the ending. Kids confessed crushes to each other. Adults updated wills with shaky pens, scribbling out last wishes. Leaders, in their bunkers, drafted letters they hoped they'd never have to mail. When Khrushchev finally announced the withdrawal, cities on both sides of the Iron Curtain erupted in cheers that felt half like victory, half like resurrection. Sirens sounded again, but this time, mercifully, for parades, not peril. Still, the relief tasted metallic, tinged with a bitter understanding. The reprieve was temporary, the game merely paused. The fear, though momentarily quelled, hadn't gone away. The Berlin Wall, that ugly symbol of division, finally came tumbling down in '89. The Soviet Union itself, that colossal empire, dissolved just 2 years later. Fireworks, dazzling and vibrant, lit up skies once reserved for the terrifying glow of mushroom clouds. Yet the psychological fallout, the mental residue of those decades, proved far stickier than any radioactive isotope. Veterans of backyard shelters, having lived through the constant threat of economic collapse as well as nuclear war, became stock market survivalists, their ingrained caution extending to their finances. Gen Xers, weaned on duck and cover drills, arguably invented disaster prep as a lifestyle, a quiet continuation of Cold War anxieties. Movies still blow up cities for sport, for entertainment, but Cold War babies, those who grew up under the shadow, still flinch when pixels bloom spherically on screen. Intelligence agencies, ever adapting, swapped nukes for cyberworms, for digital warfare, yet the language, retaliation, second strike, survives like background radiation, a constant hum in the geopolitical landscape. Bomb shelters, once grim necessities, now sell as quirky Airbnb retreats, a bizarre testament to how fear can be commodified. Geiger counters, once tools of survival, trend on Etsy as retro curiosities. Still, surveys show millennials and younger generations fear nuclear war less than their parents did. Perhaps this proves that memory decays faster than plutonium, that the visceral terror of the past fades with each passing generation. But here's the chilling truth. 9 nations now hold the button, the power to unleash global destruction. Doctrines have been modernized, delivery times shortened, the technology more precise, more devastating. The siren may be digital now, a silent alert on a screen, but the fundamental question remains antique, echoing through the decades. Can humanity, collectively, keep its finger off that trigger long enough to simply grow old? It's a question that still hangs heavy in the air. We lived entire lives under a two-word forecast, maybe tomorrow. Families built shelters, teens memorized exit routes, leaders gambled with continents, and somehow, miraculously, morning arrived. The Cold War ended without the final world-ending flash, yet its dread still hums beneath our headlines, a subtle, persistent echo. If you grew up then, share your drill memories below. Tell us what it was like. If you didn't, tell us what scares you now. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and let's keep unpacking history before it, inevitably, unpacks us.